Okay, and an audio video
Hey,
check then.
how's it going, Kurt?
There you go.
I've got
Pretty
a
well, thank you.
fly in here and he's
Uh-huh.
flying around. I've got a fly in here and he's flying around buzzing like his life depends upon it. I'm sure
I
it
think it
does.
literally does, yes.
He's flying. He's buzz, like crazy, crazy,
You know,
crazy.
I leave the door open to my studio almost the whole day long, and sometimes it gets into the night. And 2 nights ago, I left it open, and a swarm of termites came to the light outside on the porch.
Yeah.
And suddenly, I'm finding all these strange bugs flying in my studio. And once I got one, I realized, and I went out to close the door, and there were hundreds of them just swarming around the light outside. So I know what it's like to have bugs buzzing around.
Yeah, I think you gave me an idea just to leave the one door open. Maybe he'll go that way, but I think there's just too much light in here because
Yeah, they're attracted to that for sure. Yeah.
attracted to that. Yeah. But if you see me slapping my head, then you know you know it's a fly, and I'm not going crazy. It's like
Well, leave enough space between your words and the slap so that you can edit them out.
edit them out. The head slapping.
Yeah, I don't think that'd make a good recording. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just want you guys to join in our help save the world.
That'd be funny.
Hey, why not?
Yeah, it's it's distracting. It's yeah, uh, maybe it's a reinforcement that I'm a little bit out there. Supposedly, I'm the one who's out there, but in actual fact, maybe it's the rest of the world that's out there, and I'm the only one who's sane.
I
It's
think
actually
it
an
depends
interest.
on where you think you stand in the universe and where the observer thinks they're observing you from.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, that's an interesting part these days. What's normal and what will be the new normal, and what's sane and what's not. And all my life, I've been attracted to people that weren't like towing the line automatons. So I don't hold you as
yeah,
crazy. Yeah.
yeah. Um, it's um, it's just yeah. I can't comprehend like that the rest of the world doesn't see it sort of along a similar sort of lines to what I'm thinking. It's like it seems so obvious to me, but I suppose it was a journey for me to get here as well. So
Mm.
um, and now it's always difficult to look back and say, oh, why don't other people get it? When in actual fact, I was one of those people. So
Sure.
or maybe never, but to some degree.
To some degree, you were. Yeah, you can look back in your life and say, yeah, I was on autopilot and I was being run by other programs. Absolutely.
Yeah,
And nothing wrong
that,
with that. If you didn't do that, maybe you wouldn't see that as the not, you know.
yeah, yeah. That's the. I had a meeting with Austin yesterday, and he was
Mm.
saying, if you didn't know, um, if you hadn't seen a situation where there was no light, you wouldn't know that there was no such
Yeah.
thing as no light.
Yeah.
Um,
Plato's allegory of the cave, right?
yeah,
It's
tell it.
ah, Plato surmised that what if somebody lived their life in a cave, right? They were like a group of people, you know, and all that they knew of were shadows, right? There was some source of light that had shadows, and so they held the shadows as real beings. And yeah, I don't know how they perceived themselves. I forget the entire story. But the idea was until they left their cave, they had no idea that there was a different reality or a different environment or atmosphere. So yeah, a lot of us have lived our lives in that cave of, being sheltered and in our box, or whatever Plato might have referred to back then, in our cave. Yeah, so until we come out and see something different, there is no other. That's just what we get as reality. So the whole concept of, at least the current terminology about being woke, refers basically to that, right? Yeah, I woke up to a different reality than the one I've been living in and thought that was all that there is.
Yeah. What's the little girl who fell
Hmm.
down the rabbit hole? What's her name?
Alice in Wonderland? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah,
Ah,
she stepped into Wonderland, but Wonderland was more than likely the reality, and where she came from wasn't, you know.
yeah.
So
Oh, it's the same like, what's the other one? Was it that one? Maybe, no, it wasn't that one. What's the other one with Judy Garland? Somewhere over the rainbow, whatever that. The
yeah,
Wizard of Oz. Yeah. Yeah, same kind of thing. Like she entered this dream state, right? And everything that she had lived life before suddenly had a whole different appearance to her. So,
yeah.
and
The interesting one about the Alice in Wonderland falling down the rabbit hole is she
hmm,
comes across this Mad Hatter, and he's like blah 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 blah. So this, you know, and is he really the Mad Hatter?
right?
Am I not the Mad Hatter in this Wonderland? You know,
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah. We play all kinds of roles.
yeah,
Do
it's
you
so
know? Do
interesting.
you know the concept? I think it's a Native American, but it comes out of South America too, of the Heyoke,
Mm-hmm.
Hyoke.
Mm-hmm. Tell
I
us.
don't know whether it's Heyoka or Heyoki, but it's referred to. There's a number of different names for him. The jester, things like that. But it's, and then Shakespeare certainly used the Joker and the jester to wonderful use. But it's the concept of speaking the truth in parables and fables, and and couching it. But they ended up being the best advisors to the kings, at least in Shakespeare they were. Um, so yeah, that Wizard of Oz, that Mad Hatter, that Joker, um, speaks the truth, and we just need to listen instead
Yeah,
of
it
being
actually
distracted. Yeah.
reminds me of that comedian, South African comedian online. What's his name again? Is he's like the comedian on Saturday? What? What's not Saturday Night Live? It's like it's a daily
Oh
thing.
yeah,
The
the
Daily Show.
Daily Show. I think it's called the Daily Show now. Yeah, I for
Yeah,
Trevor Noah.
Trevor
Yeah,
Noah.
yeah,
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 he
yeah,
he's like ha ha ha. You know, this is a joke. This is a joke, and he's very funny in many different ways. But
yeah,
when he's now interviewing these top minds, he's just like, okay, this is like, let's get serious, you know.
yeah.
And he is right on point, you know. He's not, you know. But unfortunately, the sad thing about him is that he's getting so caught up in the media conversation that he's losing his integrity, he's losing his truth and his honesty. It just, you know, it's sad to watch, but I think that's what's happening. And because if that's the conversation you're having all the time, it's not the real conversation that you should be having.
Correct. Yeah, that's been going on for years, where the topic of media is media. It's like, come on, that's just an inbred game you guys are playing. You're not giving me any insights into anything other than we know the media manipulates and lies and distorts. But
Yeah,
yeah, um, I look, comedians have been doing that obviously for decades and decades, and George Carlin 40 years ago with the seven dirty words that you can't say on TV or radio. It's like, no, it was talking about the media. It was also talking about social mores and things. But ultimately, it's like, look at this nonsense, man. You guys are just being manipulated and propagandized and certainly the media is a big purveyor of that, as we well know.
Yeah, a lot of his stuff was absolute genius. It's like
Yeah.
um, religion, in his words, is like, I've never heard a bigger bullshit story than religion. You know, it's like, really, yeah, but genius. You know, it's
Yes.
like God is this amazing guy who can, you know, change the world and do whatever, but he can't handle his money.
Right.
He's always asking for more money. You know, it's
I
like,
think I
guy
heard that
should have.
one just in the past week. Yeah, I watched rewatched one of his. Yeah.
Funny, funny, funny. I mean, brilliant. Um,
Yeah.
um, I think you have to see the um, the truth to be able to distinguish between the two, and then create a joke out of that, which is their brilliance. You know.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, most of the good comedians that I've ever really attached to were ones that just looked at life and said, "Here, look over here," at the same thing. Look at what you're missing.
Yeah.
It's like how there was a comedian that Dick Gregory was his name. So he was just a little bit before my time. Probably came out as I was in my preteens, and I picked up on him somewhere in my teens. But he was, the generation before me, pretty much. I remember him telling a story once, and it was basically just about how indoctrinated we are. Um, that he's driving out in the middle of a desert in Nevada or something like that, let's say, and he comes to a stoplight in the middle of nowhere, right? And he's got a red light. He says like 3 a.m. He's like, and I stopped, and I'm thinking, why the hell should I stop and wait for this light to turn green at 3 a.m. when I can see for miles and miles in the desert? There's no other car coming. And just a commentary on how we just follow things without thinking. We just habitually go through our life. So, I get that helping save our world includes a lot of that conversation. It's like, what's the conversation you have about experiencing life right now?
Yeah. It's
What's
actually
going on right now?
interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting. The traffic lights in South Africa are not law; they're suggestion.
Ah,
It's like
okay.
if there's nothing happening. Well, I think that in South America it was far worse. You would have a traffic cop standing in the middle of an intersection when I
Mm-hmm.
was in my 20s, 21 or whatever. I traveled all the way around South America, and I think it was in Peru, um, where we went ashore, and there, in a major intersection in the middle of the city, was the traffic cop standing on a raised pedestal,
Mm-hmm.
and he didn't lift his hands. He just looked in one direction, and the traffic would just pour past him, and then he would just look in the other direction, and the traffic would pour in the other direction. And then, if it wasn't a major intersection, what they would do is they would flash their lights, honk their horn, and go.
Mm.
So if you had a lighter horn and you had brighter lights, you had right of way. It was just this like totally different cultural experience. And
Yeah.
the thing is if you go through a traffic light, the odds that some traffic cop or somebody is going to chase you in South Africa is like so minimal, because there are just too many people and there's not enough constabulary, or
Yeah.
policemen.
Mm-hmm.
So um, and
Well, as you know, we've gone differently on our path in the U.S. to the point where we have traffic cameras. Don't even need cops to witness it anymore. We just have this third party that takes pictures
and it's a private
uh,
corporation that
and that
makes the
too.
money
Yeah.
and gives the government some money out of it. It's like,
Yeah.
really, it's
Yeah.
criminal. It's absolutely criminal.
I fully
Rochelle
agree.
seems to be joining us.
Well, good.
Hello, Rochelle. How are you? You're at the beach. Oh my gosh, I want to go there.
I'll have to look for other pictures now.
No, you've got a perfect picture behind you. That's
No,
that's
I meant
awesome.
to be able to see Rochelle. I only have you and I.
Oh,
I gotta go to the view that shows all of us.
And there's another thing on your cell phone. If you go to video settings, you can make that the width of go wider on your screen.
Are
Hey,
you not
Rochelle.
seeing me as a widescreen? You're
No,
talking to
you're
her.
not
Hello.
thin screen, but you're medium screen. You can actually make it full screen. Hey,
Okay. Well,
Rochelle,
that's
how's it
Hello.
going?
Good. How are you?
It's good to see you, and I'm very well,
Yeah, good
thanks.
to see you too.
It's Brendan and Alex are not able to join us today,
That's okay.
so we're basically just focusing on a conversation, and the ideas so far that came up was first of all comedians who are um, and jesters in the king's courts and so on who have influenced leaders and people through being actually insightful um, and aware of what's going on, where most of the people indoctrinated into a system are unaware. So it's been a fascinating conversation so far. So, how has your journey been? Have you everything been going well with you?
It's been a very interesting week so far. As you know, South Africa has dropped to level 4 lockdown,
Hmm.
which means a few things for some of us. Which means we're allowed to go and walk outside. You know, being in a gated estate, we've been locked upstairs in our flat. We haven't been allowed outside to walk in the gardens or anything
Oh,
for 21 days. And now we're allowed to, but only between 6 in the morning and 9 o'clock in the morning. Um, and we're allowed to do home delivered meals, which I have my own food business where I deliver home cooked meals, which I haven't been able to run for the last 21 days, which I then started again on Friday and did 29 orders, which I
nice.
cooked up and delivered on Friday and Saturday, and I was very busy. And it's I cooked. My stove was full. I had 4 pots on it. I was cooking. I was packaging. I was delivering. I had great reviews. So it all went well, but it was very busy, but
Wow,
good.
that's cool.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. People were
so,
happy not to eat their own food.
yeah, be able to just take some time out, from
Yeah,
cooking.
yeah.
Yeah, having your family around all the time, it means you got to feed them, damn.
Yeah, so I do curries mostly. So that's my, I'm not all vegan, but I only sell free range organic meat. I don't use mass produced meat. So I play my part a little bit that way. I know it doesn't help curb much, but it's still something that I do try with. I don't buy any mass produced meat. So, but yes, yes, but I also do vegetarian curries and vegan curries and potatoes and beans but yeah, I did a lot of orders and it went well. It's been busy, but all
Yeah,
good.
that's my favorite thing in
Yeah.
in South Africa is curry. And the thing is I was just doing some cooking with some spices here. And I lived in America for 17 years, and the spices are just absolutely ridiculously useless
Mm.
compared to what we have here, because we have a very vibrant Hindu community, which was originally brought over here as sugarcane cutters for the plantations by the landowners, and they have basically created a Hindu culture here with like incredible spices, herbs and spices, and so on. And it's all grown here locally, and it's of course great soils and great skill, that they brought from India. So fascinating, the spices and so on. And at one stage, I went when I was here before I left 17 years ago. We basically, when I was doing this research on religions, I went to the different Hindu temples and met with their type of monks. I'm not sure what they're called anymore, and basically learned a lot about their cooking and so on. But then they also had an outlet, which is on the Edwin Swales Drive, right just where it joins Bluff Road, and the curries and everything from there were just mind-blowingly incredible curries. So, and then of course going over to America and eating the curries there, it's like there's no comparison. It's just like no. So coming back to South Africa, of course, I go to all of these little holes in the wall where there's this like mommy Indian lady, and she cooks incredible curries.
I grew up with my father cooking curries and taking me to the Esplanade, okay, as an 8-year-old girl, to Smith Street, the little alleys down there, and there was always an auntie there where he'd buy a bunny loaf, and then he would cook curries, and I would learn from him from a very young age. So and I got so tired of going and buying a curry that only had, it was a very small portion, and you'd pay a lot of money for, and it wasn't good value for money, and you could tell there was a lot of oil, there were a lot of fuel, food was floating in oil the whole time. So I thought, no, I'll just do my own curries. I'll only use free range meat. I'll only cook with a tablespoon of coconut oil, organic coconut oil, and make the curry healthy, but it's still going to have that full flavor of spice. And
I'm salivating. You're going to need to stop.
And I still sell it at a good price, and it's value for money. So yeah, I did very well. And I'll definitely make one for you. I'm cooking again on Tuesday, so I'll come deliver one for you. Sorry, Kurt, not for you.
My dream, it's paradise.
Dennis is down the road.
It was very funny, actually. I brought my second wife, Shannon, to South Africa in about 2005 or whatever, and we went to that Indian curry place because she said, she loved curries, and she would like to try curries. And I said, well, the curries are pretty hot here, but she says, no, I love spicy, don't worry, And I said, well, okay, well, this is like, I went through tasting different curries, and I'm like, okay, this one is really, really amazing. And I'm not trying to be cruel or anything, just like I love the flavor of it. And she takes a big mouthful of it, and she just bursts out screaming like doing the tribal dance around the place. Running. It's like, no, stop! What do you need? You need milk. You need, and it was very embarrassing, But I was like, but it's delicious, Fascinating.
Nope.
So Lorna has just arrived. I know that we're beyond the actual starting time, but it seems that I spoke to Austin yesterday, and he said that he wouldn't be able to make it this week, and he would be able to make it maybe next week, and then there is Alex and Brendan, who are not well today, so they weren't able to make it. And so the thing is we will have up and downs, whether we like it or not. It's just it's the way it is. I mean, the point is a lot of this, what I'm teaching, is so controversial and so challenging to many, many people. To some people, it's like within their ability to grasp and to deal with and to go there. And you usually find that that's more the case with people who have lived in different places around the world, or are foreign to to literally that American culture, because the culture is so heavily controlled and indoctrinated that
It's a language.
to think,
Mm.
no, it really is the education system and the I think it's also like the historical group of people that were the original forefathers from the Mayflower and so on. That was a very, very sort of extremely religious group of people. And that influence has had a profound effect on the historical development of the country.
Mm.
So it's a very sort of, in general, it's a very conservative, very controlled, very patriotic, very, there's so many different aspects to it. And for somebody living in that culture to think outside the box and to be willing to or able to go there is not easy. It really isn't. So when they're faced with something, it's like, that's crazy. This man is like out of his mind. And then they'll go away and they'll experiment and they'll learn and they're like, oh my gosh, maybe he wasn't so crazy. And then hopefully they'll return. But that might just be enough to chase them out the door and they'll never return. So, but this journey, we're all going to take it whether we like it or not. It's fundamental to our survival and existence on this planet as living beings. So it might be difficult for some, too difficult that they can never go there. And of course, they'll suffer the consequences of that. And then it might be just challenging for others, and they will adapt and learn and go off on their own journey and discover and realize, okay, maybe he was right, and then come back, and then ultimately, hopefully, we have some impact and influence on changing the hearts and minds of people around the world, and then of course making a difference to our world. But I think just recording the videos and putting it out there, when somebody's ready and they sort of like it sings to them, it'll work. But just because some people are battling, it doesn't mean that we must stop doing what we're doing. What do you think? What do you think, Kurt? Or Rochelle?
Well, I'd agree with that. We're all being inundated with stuff anyway. Many of us have chosen to be inundated by mindless stuff that keeps us from questioning and thinking. It just passes the time. And then there are others that are actually using their life minutes, to further a particular purpose of awareness, of knowledge, of enlightenment, whatever word it is. So, yeah, I think people get to choose how much they can take and at what time. And some of them don't even know what they're choosing. They may leave for a certain reason. I think your reference to what we call the Puritans and the puritanical ethic that definitely permeates the foundation of the U.S. It's very apt. It's like, you don't need to think, you don't need to believe. It's staying this rigid set of guidelines. This is how to have a good life and a good society, and pay no attention to the Indians that we're allowing to slaughter. Just follow us and we'll teach you the good way. And it's impacted us in so many ways in our life. And certainly, the aspect of connecting with sexuality and body and being a human being. A lot of us deny the body, make believe that it doesn't exist and you don't have to answer to it. Just follow our guidelines. So, like any other society where we've been steeped in the history, the already existing history that was here certainly before we entered the planet. And again, I'm a first generation American, though my father did grow up here from pre-teen age. And he adopted it the American way really quickly. And then, I'm being a first generation under him, just said, what is this that you bought into? I don't particularly like this. And, I was a product of the 60s, at least in my teen years. So I had a different way of looking at what society and what this culture can offer us. And, I chose the rebellious side and the counterculture. And the turn on, tune in, drop out kind of perspective on, let's question exactly what it is that is running the environment or the country that we live in. So even at that time, there was a huge divide, as you can imagine, between all those hippies, right? Or before that, it was those beatniks. Before that, it was those commies, and whatever you want to label, people that weren't thinking straight down the propaganda line. So how people approach the question that we're in right now, and for the past 5 or 6 weeks globally, there's been an isolation in effect for a majority of people to question, what is this? And I would say many of them have just avoided answering that question and haven't gone into the existential aspect of, this is where you're at right now. They've gone into the existential aspect of, this is a pretty crappy situation I'm in, and damn those people, and I don't have enough. And you're going, again, all on the defensive outward view of things rather than, hey, I just got a really big time out and there's nothing I can do about it. So let me use it to the best of my advantage. And,
I'm something? Sure,
I do. What?
Something of interest here. The 4 people that are online are teachers, believe and it's fascinating.
Of course they are.
Yeah, I mean, teachers are the most able to be learners and to be willing to go there because, well, I'm not saying all teachers, but it's fascinating to realize that it's us 4 teachers that are on this call together, which is absolutely incredible.
I think part of teachers, they want to help open up others to different realities or knowledge or whatever. So yeah, that we see this, and there's, as you know, millions of people on this planet that think similar to the way we do or are aligned with the concepts that we hold. Not all of them are out doing Zooms and talking to people. They just, it's not, sorry.
Well, I think teachers are fundamentally of the ethic or the way of living where they learn, they take that knowledge and they teach it, they hand it on. I mean, that's their fundamental sort of premise is, and so here's an opportunity to learn, to take that gift and to hand it on. And we are basically in service of all the children and all the people out there. It's just, we are born to serve, we're born to get what we can, the best of life, and to hand it on to the next generation or to other people. So I think this is something.
Satisfied? And can you ever be satisfied that you know enough, that you're passing on the right information? So you've got to keep on learning so that you're absolutely certain that you know enough, that the information that you are passing on is the correct information, not the incorrect information. So you're permanently there making sure that you're increasing your knowledge as much as possible, as a teacher.
That's it. It's hello, Lorna, how are you? Sound, Lorna?
Hi, everybody. Morning.
Morning.
A little late. Slow today.
Yeah, no, it's all good. It's all good. But that's, I think, the fundamental thing is we decide on a life of service to others, and then we go and we gather the best that we can to give the best of what we can. So it's a particular type of person, and I think maybe this is a growth journey for me on who came onto the call, and so it just, for me, it's super interesting. All right, so do you mind if I just do some of the recordings that I set up? Just maybe 1 or 2. I can always do the rest on my own, but just maybe this will be our opportunity to expand our thoughts and our minds. So, do you mind?
Okay,
Everyone happy?
have at it.
Good.
Yep.
All right.